I mean, can I say that this is similar to empathizing? Can we say that if we empathize,
Yes.
I mean, experts, they have been telling that empathizing is one of the very significant way of actually reducing this prejudiced actions, which is hazardous for society. What is the thought of other panel member here? Yep, Simon.
I'll quickly say that I think empathy is not enough, because I think sitting on the sideline empathizing is not enough. You have to have compassion, as Spiro was saying, because compassion is almost like it's a bigger basically movement of yourself, as opposed to just empathize. And I also think that there's both a destructive and a creative force. So look at us, we're all creating nuclear weapons. Every country, it's like if they put all their money and energy into feeding the world, there'll be no need to basically arm yourself, because most of us will lose. I mean, every country having nuclear weapons, it only takes one to drop one. The rest lose. So why are we spending so many trillions of dollars arming ourselves against what? Against your fellow man. Now that's stupidity in its right mind. And we're talking about hunger and relief and all this. I don't understand it. Because seriously, if all it takes is 1 year worth of, if put all that money that they're spending on armory to be able to basically feed the world, replenish it, as they say, there wouldn't be the kind of sickness and poverty and wars as you see today.
It's very, very, very significant point you're touching, Simon. And I think it's a very good one for our next podcast. We can touch on this. It's I think it needs a bit of more thought into it. And it's a very important point for society's perspective as well. So let's keep it. Thank you very much, Simon.
I just want to say one more thing before we close, is that we've touched on the big scary monster under the bed in terms of prejudice, the obvious prejudice such as governments or financial or war. That's the really obvious stuff. What we haven't really spoken about, and it touches on what Atish was asking about, the fine line, is that from a practical standpoint, we have to be prejudiced. We have no choice, because if we don't be prejudiced in any way and we meet and interact with every single person with a complete open mind, it would be too hard. Like, you meet someone in the context of the workplace, as an example, you would reasonably assume that they would be people that are interested in where they work, or there's some kind of prejudice regarding that. If they're Italian, you assume, or you hear they've got an Italian accent, you're prejudiced to assume that they're from Italy. If we spent every single day, where are you from? What are you doing? How long have you been here? Do you like chicken? Do you like beef? Are you vegetarian? Are you, do you like sport? Well, I mean, if it would just take forever. Like, imagine meeting someone at the bar and then you have to go through their full life story before you can make any judgments. It's just not possible, right? So at the most basic level, there has to be some level of prejudice, right?
Yeah. Can I conclude with one point as an example? So when you get on a plane and they go through the whole safety check, what they say when the airbag goes drop in, they say help yourself first, right? They say put on the bag to yourself first, then put it on to your child. That's the whole idea behind what you're saying, Ian, is make sure you're preserved first before you can try and help the other. There's a compassion there. The compassion is that knowing that you can't save another before you save yourself. So there has to be that first in line before you can do anything else.
All righty, team. Thank you for inputs. Now, I would put my thoughts here. I mean, that about the fine line quickly, and we'll just kind of conclude this session. I think prejudice is an force, which is a subconscious force, which forms itself. And as Simon touched it very kind of in a quite meaningful way, that there are certain way of actually empathizing and self-introspection and compassion by which a human perception can make a discretionary decision that what prejudice to use. Is it meaningful to use? Is it nurturing? Is it useful or not? And the other point which I would say, that empathizing, putting the leg into the shoe of other person before making a conclusion, as Spiro touched that point, somebody's joining in your company and you're making on a very short information, you're making a kind of whole personality diagram for this person, which is actually a false creation of your own mind. So that means you need to let it go. You need to have that acceptance that you need to give yourself time and to collect enough information, see it from multiple angles before you reach to a kind of decision or conclusion. And more importantly, if you'd ask me personally, I would say that human being, we can go extra mile. We can accept things where we see that, okay, this person is possibly struggling with this thing or he needs improvement on this segment. You can be a facilitator. You can engage with this person. You can work with this person. It can be your family member. It can be your colleague. It can be your neighbor, instead of being that, you can be a facilitator, engage, and add value to the life of co-beings. Yes,
That's still a prejudice, mate.
That's still a prejudice. Exactly, you're right. It's a bit broader, but it is still the prejudice. I agree with that. It's actually infinite topic, I tell you, because we translate it into form of force. We need to dig it down where it started. Actually, still the question exists. Anyway, thank you very much, fellow lunchers, and thank you very much to the panel being here today. You can follow us on our Facebook account. You can go to our Twitter account. You can go to our other social media accounts. Put your thoughts on this episode, which will be broadcasted soon in few days on the discretion and prejudice of Mr. Spiro. All right, time to say goodbye. I'm Atish, and the team say goodbye to the fellow lunchers, and we conclude.
Adios, amigos.
Bye-bye.
Signing out.
Bye, team.
You have been listening to the Lunchtime Special Podcast. Subscribe and like us on iTunes, Castbox, Spreaker and SoundCloud. Follow us on Instagram and Facebook. Or visit us at lunchtimespecialpodcast.com. Until next time.